Hello, guys. This story is about an innocent soul that is trapped in the house. Can Cara and her father help her to get peace? Well, let's find out. Cara had always been a skeptic when it came to the supernatural. She never believed in ghosts or hauntings, thinking them to be nothing more than figments of the imagination. But that all changed when her father was hospitalized in a near-death accident. As Cara sat by her father's bedside, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The hospital room was eerily quiet, with only the beeping of machines and the occasional whisper from the nurses outside. It was late at night, and Cara's mother had gone home to get some rest, leaving her alone with her father. Suddenly, Cara heard a faint rustling sound coming from the corner of the room. She turned to look, but saw nothing. Shrugging it off as her imagination, she went back to reading her book. But as she turned the page, she caught a glimpse of a figure in the corner of her eye. Cara froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She slowly looked up and saw a young girl standing there, staring back at her with hollow eyes. Without thinking, Cara screamed and ran out of the room, the book falling from her hands. The nurses came rushing in, asking what had happened. When they entered the room, they found Cara's father sleeping peacefully, and no sign of the ghostly girl that Cara had just seen. Cara couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that had settled in her stomach. She told the nurses what she had seen, but they dismissed it, saying she must have been tired and seeing things. But Cara knew what she saw was real. The next day, Cara's father was discharged from the hospital with a clean bill of health. They were relieved and went back to their new home, a quaint house in the countryside. It was supposed to be a fresh start for them after her father's accident. As they settled into their new home, Cara couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. She constantly felt like she was being watched and would often see shadows moving out of the corner of her eye. Her father noticed her unease and tried to brush it off as just her imagination. Cara had just moved into her new home with her father. Despite being a little apprehensive about living in an old, creaky house, Cara was excited about the change. She had her own room, which she decorated with her favorite color, purple. As she got ready for bed that night, she couldn't help but feel a sense of comfort in her new surroundings. But then, as she was getting under the covers, she saw something in the corner of her eye. It was a ghostly figure of a little girl, with long black hair and a tattered white dress. Cara froze, unsure if she was just imagining things. But the longer she looked, the clearer the figure became. And then the girl was standing right at the foot of her bed, her hand outstretched towards Cara. With a gasp, Cara reached for the light switch and turned on the lights. The ghost disappeared in an instant. Cara sat up in bed, shivering from the encounter. Was she going crazy? She couldn't keep this to herself any longer. She had to tell someone. The next morning, Cara told her father about the ghostly figure she saw. To her surprise, her father didn't seem shocked. Instead, he revealed that he had been seeing the same girl in his dreams ever since his accident a few months ago. He believed that she was trying to communicate with them. Together, Cara and her father decided to do some research on the history of their new home. They discovered that it used to be an orphanage in the early 1900s. little girl, Sarah, was one of the orphans who had tragically died in a fire. Her spirit was still trapped in the house, longing for a family and a home. Cara and her father were moved by Sarah's story and wanted to help her find peace. They reached out to a well-known medium in the area and arranged a session to communicate with Sarah's spirit. The medium confirmed that Sarah's soul was indeed trapped in the house, and she was trying to reach out to the living for help. With the medium's guidance, Cara and her father were able to communicate with Sarah's spirit. They learned that Sarah had been waiting for someone to help her move on and find peace. She had been wandering the halls of the orphanage for years, unable to leave until someone helped her. Moved by Sarah's story, Cara and her father made the decision to help her move on. They held a ceremony and said goodbye to Sarah's spirit, helping her find the peace and closure she desperately needed. And from that day on, the ghostly presence in their home disappeared. Cara and her father felt a sense of relief and closure after helping Sarah. Their new home felt even more welcoming and warm, knowing that they had helped a lost soul find her way. Cara's father also stopped having nightmares, and they both knew that Sarah's spirit had finally found peace. No longer would they fear the ghostly figure of the little girl, but instead, they would remember her as a part of their new family. Subscribe for more.